Welcome to KR Films Entertainment Channel. Today I am going to explain a 2018 action horror movie called Rampant. How could humans survive with outdated weapons when the zombie virus emerged in ancient times? This is a zombie horror movie called the ancient version of Busan. The story starts with an ocean-going merchant ship in the Pacific Ocean. Lee's Joseon army stormed the merchant ship to confiscate foreign guns. However, they do not know that in addition to the guns on board there is also a foreigner carrying the zombie virus. The others helped the bitten man and quickly left the scene. The man with the virus stumbled back to the village the next day. He devoured the meal his wife had prepared, but his eyes were fixated on her neck. The man began to twitch at night with a 2.5-month-old child by his side. Soon, the man's face was bruised with blue veins, and the wife returned to the room, not knowing what had happened. She found him lying on the bed, gnawing on something, and the man turned around and startled his wife. He had transformed into a zombie, the children had been killed, and his wife did not survive. With the zombies out of the room, the whole village has become hell on earth. And the foreign guns looted by the army were also seized by the court's soldier judge. He confiscated all the weapons and reported them to the king for illegal gun possession and conspiracy to rebel. The king was convinced and immediately tortured them personally. But even after the torture, they still refused to tell the mastermind. However, the mastermind showed up at that moment. And he was none other than the king's eldest son Lee Yong. It turns out that he did not do this to plot a rebellion but instead for the sake of the long-lasting peace of the Lee dynasty. Nowadays the traitors in the court are in power, making the people suffer. He wants to use weapons to deter the traitors in the court. But the king was suspicious by nature, and with the treacherous ministers fanning the flames, how could the king believe it? Lee Yong could only die to thank him for his crime in order not to implicate his subordinates and their beautiful wife. But before he died, he wrote a secret letter to his brother, the second prince of the Qing dynasty. After receiving the secret letter, Li King returned from the Qing dynasty to Joseon. Although he had grown up in the Qing dynasty and was not interested in the throne, he had a strong bond with his brother. He came back this time because he was entrusted by his brother to take his sister-in-law to live in the Qing dynasty away from the strife in the dynasty. However, the strange thing is that the originally lively port village has become unusually lonely. And they need help, seeing the guard who greeted him. When the two men saw the charred corpses on the ground, they thought it was an ordinary plague. They did not know that there was a terrible zombie virus outbreak here. And they waited until the evening before the Praetorian Guard came late, but the keen Li King found that these people were not the Praetorian Guard. Their bodies were full of murderous aura, and they had no extra horses. After saying that, Li King pulled out the big sword at his waist, and the recognized assassins did not pretend anymore and attacked the two men. They were the soldiers assigned to guard the palace, and their purpose was to prevent Li King from entering. However, just as the two sides fought, a zombie suddenly pounced on the killer. As Li King looked on in shock, the killer was bitten to death. Li King also realized the villagers were no longer human, so he wielded his sword and began fighting back. They were bloodthirsty and biting, and the killer was soon wiped out. The Li King also realized that the villagers were no longer human. So he wielded his sword and began to fight back. However, the zombies kept coming. And the group soon surrounded the two. Seeing the zombies step by step, Li King hurriedly set up an attack position. But the zombie was hit by a sharp arrow while wielding his sword. A woman then appeared on the roof and shot a second arrow. The special arrows made a sound and drew the zombies to her. Then several more people rushed out of the alley, quickly killing the zombies. With their tacit cooperation, the zombies were soon all wiped out. The visitor is none other than his brother's confidant Lao Park, who knows that the military judge has killed the son and wants to usurp power. He must have sent someone to assassinate the army, so he came to meet them. The villagers were infected with some virus and became a zombie monsters. Once bitten by them will also mutate. Want to kill them can only be beheaded through the heart. The body must also be burned, but they have a fatal weakness, are afraid of sunlight, and can only stay in the dark place. To avoid the attack of zombies, the survivors gathered together. Some people in the cells have been bitten and could become zombies at any time. On the other side, a bitten killer returned to report to the soldier judge. To get the silver, he lied that the Maharaja was dead. He also said he was bitten by a crazy villager and hoped to pay for his medical expenses. After hearing this, the soldier judge agreed on the surface, but he already had a plan in mind. He took the killer to the cellar's entrance and lied to him that the silver was down there. Then, when the killer was not paying attention, he kicked him down. He already knew about the virus outbreak in the port village but did not report it to the king, because he wanted to use the virus to seize power and usurp the throne. For this reason, he also specially placed a concubine on the king's side. And now the time is ripe. Soon the undercover consort was called over. She entered the warehouse but found that the military judge was not there, only an open cellar. When she curiously checked it out, the zombies suddenly pounced from behind. By the next day, the king's consorts were dining with him, and the consort who the zombie bit was among them. The king, who was enjoying his meal, was unaware of the danger coming as the concubine began to mutate. Her veins extended to her neck, her eyes turned into two lychees, and her body took a bizarre posture. Before the king could react, the completely mutated concubine fell to the ground. Everyone was shocked by this sudden scene. The eunuchs who reacted hurriedly pulled him away. The guards, who heard the commotion, rushed in and stabbed the zombie in the heart as it pounced on them. Although the zombie was finished, the king had been bitten on the arm and the Maharaja was preparing to leave for the palace. Old Park wanted him to report the situation to the king so that he could send troops to destroy the zombies and save the civilians from the fire. Leaking, although he likes to play, cares about the people. So he agrees to this request. To protect Leaking's safety, Love Park and his group also went along. But when they arrived at the port, they found it had been cordoned off as an infected area. No one was allowed to leave the village except Leaking. The others had no choice but to stay here and let Leaking go to the palace alone. But the news that he was not dead soon reached the ears of the military judge, and he was mixed up with Old Park and the others, so the military judge ordered that Old Park's group be arrested immediately. The following day, Leaking saw his father, whom he had not seen for a long time, in the courtroom, and he immediately told him about the virus outbreak, but he didn't expect his father to know anything about it. The military judge had blocked all the news. He immediately asked the king to send troops so that he could lead the army to eliminate the zombies. Hearing this matter, the king immediately agreed to do so. But just as he was about to leave with his sister-in-law, the subordinate returned to the palace. He told Leaking that Old Park and the others had been captured as rebels. Just then, the military judge met him and Leaking knew he had ordered the arrests. But full of civil and military officials, Leaking does not dare to act rashly. And the military judge also did not pretend and directly threatened Leaking. At this time, the King Dynasty's ambassador arrived at the palace. The civil and military officials knelt to greet them. The evening also included a special welcome ceremony. However, everyone did not know that the zombie virus had begun to spread quietly in the palace under the arrangement of the military judge, and the king also had signs of mutation. Seeing that everything was going according to his plan, the military judge could not help but write a poem. Soon the zombies spread to every corner of the palace and the king was mutated entirely. He staggered onto the dance floor and jumped right into the dancing courtesans. The crowd was stunned, only the military judge had a calm face. The scene was just seen by Leaking, who could not have imagined that his father had also turned into a zombie. However, before he could react, the soldier behind him stabbed his father in the heart. Openly plotting a rebellion in public is to provoke the authority of the King Dynasty. In the face of the accusations of the king ambassador, the soldier judge did not take it seriously. Many corpses swarmed the scene and the soldier judge was prepared and quickly withdrew under cover of the musket team. Now if we wait until the zombies kill everyone, Bingju will be the king of Joseon tomorrow. Seeing his father's death at the king's hands, Leaking had no time to grieve. He wielded his machete to kill all the corpses and found his sister-in-law hiding under the table in the chaos. Then, he took his sister-in-law out of the crowd and left the scene on his horse after entrusting him to his subordinate. To defend against the zombies, he immediately found the general of the Forbidden Army. He told him to dispatch the army to destroy the zombies quickly or Korea would be finished. And Leaking came to the dungeon to rescue Old Park and the others captured by the soldiers. The general of the Praetorian Guard also blocked the palace with all his men and they wanted to destroy all the zombies. However, the stout defense in front of many zombies needs help to help. Zombies soon broke through the door and from all sides continued to come. The Forbidden Army can only choose to fight to the death, but they are soon forced to the corner because they are outnumbered. The situation on the Leaking side was not optimistic either, as many zombies rushed into the dungeon and began to attack them. But the good thing is that the corpses are temporarily locked in the cell, but it is only a matter of time before they are broken through. Desperate, they saw a window in the lens, and several people worked together to open it. Leaking and Love Park cover the back, but the zombies break through the cell door. At the critical moment, the monk pried open a door. Two people using the cell door to resist, the others took the opportunity to get out. After everyone left, Old Park got out at the last minute, and the fierce battle continued until dawn. The Forbidden Army has few left, even the general was bitten on the arm. It was good that they began to retreat after losing the fear of sunlight. They have hidden in the shade waiting for the darkness to sweep in again, and at this moment the military judge also finally waited. Now they must take advantage of the day to eliminate all the zombies and usher in a new dynasty, and the ministers also know that the Lee dynasty has gone and all began to call the soldier judge as king. However, the dream was not long after the military judgment was attacked by a zombie that appeared out of nowhere. One of his men was bitten at some point, but he was quickly killed with a single slash. The minister looked at his arm as he asked if anyone else was bitten. It turned out that he had just been accidentally bitten on the palm of his hand, and now it seemed that it was not sure who would be the king. One of the ministers took the lead and prepared to take the opportunity to kill the king, but he underestimated the force of the king's strength. Unwillingly, the king killed all the ministers instantly, even his beloved ones. All his plans were ruined, so he cut off the bitten arm, took a lot of drugs to suppress the virus, and finally became a half-human, half-corpse monster. Looking at the dragon robe he had prepared, military judgment decided to put it on his body. Even if he becomes a zombie, he still wants to fulfill his dream of becoming king. Meanwhile, Li King, who had escaped, found the leader of the Forbidden Army. To prevent the zombies from attacking again at night, he ordered the chief of the Forbidden Army to send the soldiers guarding the border to support him, while they stayed in the palace to find a way to hold the zombies back. After discussion, they quickly devised a battle plan, placing a large drum in the palace to attract the zombies. The outside of the palace was filled with dry wood and poured with gasoline so that when the zombies were introduced into the court, they would all be destroyed by fire. Soon it was dark. The zombies came out again and everyone immediately withdrew to the palace to prepare for the implementation of the plan. But who will light the fire? Everyone is willing to give their lives. While everyone was arguing about this, Old Park lifted his clothes and was bitten by a zombie. Seeing the wounds on his body, everyone fell into sorrow, but they all knew the end of the bite and could only leave the palace with tears in their eyes. When they arrived at the top of the walls, drums rang out within the palace, and the loud drums resounded throughout the court. When the zombies heard it, they gathered at the palace. And Old Park held back his remaining consciousness and kept beating the drum. When the zombies covered the palace, the Old Park could not hold out any longer before lighting the fuse. But the result was only satisfactory. After the flames spread, the fire was stomped out by the arriving soldier judge, who walked up and killed Old Park with a single slash, then walked to his coveted dragon chair. Several people outside saw that the fire was slow to ignite and guessed that Old Park had had an accident. To complete the plan, leaking alone and fast to kill the corpses after the man overturned and quickly got up to kill the zombies. With flexible positioning and sharp knife skills, Licking began to dance in the corpse's herd, so he hacked his way from the outside of the temple to the inside without blinking an eye. After finishing off a few zombies, Licking saw the dead Old Park. He couldn't care less about the soldier judge sitting on the dragon chair. He took Park's place and beat the drum. Soon the zombies were reintroduced into the palace and he beat the drum while cutting down the zombies. Just as he was about to pick up the torch and light the fuse, the soldier judge stepped in to stop it, and the two of them instantly got into a fight. With the virus, the army's attack had no effect at all, and the soldier judge is already a strong fighter. Every blow is a blast. Li King quickly fell into the wind, seeing that the zombies had surrounded him. At the critical moment, she outside shot a piercing arrow with fire. The rocket hit the pillar impartially. The Li King saw this, jumped onto the beam, pulled out the rocket, and threw it down. The zombies inside were instantly buried in a sea of fire as the fire was ignited, and Li King also climbed up the roof along the pillar, but he did not expect the soldier judge to follow. The two fought together again on the rooftop, which was scorched by the fire, but after a few rounds, Li King was still no match for the judge and almost fell. But the villain often dies because he talks too much. The moment the other side wielded a sword, Li King seized the opportunity to return to the roof. Then he took out the knife at his waist and started to attack, and the soldier stabbed in the heart is still trying to fight for his life. At the moment of crisis, the tiles under his feet suddenly collapsed, and Li King took the opportunity to knock the military judgment to the ground. After getting up, he picked up the sword and stabbed it down and they fell into the fire together, but Li King was lucky to grab the beam. Exhausted, he climbed to the roof. Meanwhile, the general guarding the border led a large force to kill the palace. Equipped with muskets, they quickly cleared the remaining zombies. Amidst the cheers of the soldiers and the people, Li King finally became the new king of Joseon. Thanks for watching.